Welcome to the FC podcast. We are excited to partner with the prestigious FIFA Master Alumni Association, bringing you some exclusive insights from some of the brightest minds in the world of sports business, and in particular, FIFA Master alumni that have emerged from the Asia and Oceania region. My name is James Kitching. I'm the Managing Director of the FC Sports, the 12th edition of the FIFA Master, and this is Season 1 of the FC podcast. We will be chatting with key leaders from across the Asia-Oceania region, delving into their unique experiences and uncovering the secrets to their success in this dynamic industry that we know as sport. Digging deeper, exploring the leadership qualities that drive these individuals, the challenges they've faced, and the lessons they've learned along the way. And we might even find out what their favourite football team is. So today, it is my absolute pleasure and delight to welcome Chen Liang-Chen, who is the acting General Secretary of the Chinese Taipei Football Association. For those that don't come from the world of football, a General Secretary is the CEO. So we're very, very lucky to have with us the CEO of the Chinese Taipei Football Association here today. Chen, it's a pleasure. I'm very grateful for your time. I know you're a very busy man with your league about to start in approximately 1 month. Before we get underway, I ask every guest to give us a quick, tell us your name, your nationality, which FIFA Master edition you're from, and your favorite sports team. It doesn't need to be a football team, but everyone so far has said a football team. But so name, nationality, favorite sports team, and FIFA Master edition.
All right. Thank you, James. Thank you for having me on the show. And it's my greatest pleasure to be in the first editions. So my name is Chen. Across Asia, people call me Chen, since there are a lot of Chens in this part of the world. So Chen from Chinese Taipei. I'm the 18th from the 18th editions of FMA. It was such a great time to be there, in 3 cities. Still remember to these dates. Right now I'm the acting General Secretary for Chinese Taipei. A lot of football, a lot of things that I learned from FIFA Master Edition that helped me along the ways that I'm very happy to share with everybody. And my last question, that, as Jim said, that the favorite team. So I actually watch a lot of football, but I didn't have a professional football team that I'd love to. But since my first city in Europe was Leicester, so I've just joined the Leicester, the Fox. So I become a Fox fan. So I still follow them, although that in Champions League, championship this year, but they're doing well. So that would be my favorite professional team. National team wise, as a general secretary, of course, Chinese Taipei.
You don't have a choice there, that's for sure. And would you believe it? I think you were the second one of our guests to mention Leicester City as their favorite team. So the FIFA Master should actually be speaking to the commercial team at Leicester City, because it's driving fandom for the club. So
yeah, they should.
Awesome, great. Thanks, Chen. Look, obviously you're in such a big role in the Football Association in your country. At a relatively young age, you're the CEO or the General Secretary, as we say in football. Can you explain to the viewers and the listeners your career to date and how you ended up here as the acting General Secretary?
Of course, sure. My career starts as I think everybody does in the sports. That's you love the sports. So I played, and then as a player, I know that's how hard it needs to be, in the top. Being in this part of the world, that's academic is one of the things that parenthood stress about. So parenting is like, okay, you want to do sports? Yes, but please try something else too. So I moved my way from players. Then I was okay, maybe get involved, but not as playing much. So referees, and so became a referee. So FIFA referee was my goal. And it just so happened that to be a FIFA referee, English needs to be one of the strong suits. So I was helping with a lot of referee materials translation here in Taiwan, and then the FA think that they need an international person, so they recruit me, but not as a referee, as an administration part. So joined the FA in 2015. Along the way, I met a couple of FMA alumni that worked in AFC. So they start talking about how beneficial they got from FMA, how the connection, the everything they had. So he kind of just also, I think that's the one time I met you, James, that when you were in AFC at the time. So along was like, okay, this is what I want to do. Always want to live in the world that's just football is life. So I joined on the FIFA Master in 2017, and from that finished it, and then came back to Taiwan, and then worked in the international department for 2-3 years. After that, in 2018, I was recruited by the champion teams here in the league to be the general managers for 1 year, and so I had the time to also work in the club. So then we have the elections here. Then the new president's recruit me, see if I'm interested in this position. That was my experience. So it's been 10 years in the FA, but in football it's almost 25 years. So like James says, the age might be young, but the experience wise, I stick to football for maybe almost 25 years now.
Amazing. So started as a referee and ended up as the CEO of the Football Association. It's a
quite a role.
Different career paths to most that go into it, but that's an amazing journey, an amazing story. And I do remember meeting you in Kuala Lumpur. I should have disclosed the conflict of interest at the start of the pod, but it's all good. I think everyone that's going to be a guest this season, there's a conflict of interest, so it's taken, and everyone knows it.
Yep.
But that's a fascinating journey, going from refereeing to international relations. Then you stepped away, studied, and then you worked in a professional club, and then you came back.
Yep.
And then you came back to the Football Association in a senior role. Obviously, right in the middle of that, you decided to step away and go and study for 1 year. What were the key lessons that you learned from your upskilling by studying in 1 year that you could bring back to the Football Association? And also during that time, you went to a professional club as well. What were those key lessons that came back and helped you in this part of your career now?
Well, I think the turning point was that to understand that football is just like any other professionalism. Professions is, you have a lot of aspects, a lot of phases of it. So stepping away and coming back, just every time it just accumulated some experience and some knowledge that I didn't have. Meeting with people that they can share with their knowledge. And I think that's what drives me. Always want to learn, and also not afraid of taking the challenge to leave the position that I have. I met with a lot of FMA people when I was just a referee department head, and then I realized that not only referee is part of the football, but also on administration side, business side, and also laws, everything. So I decided to leave FA to go to Europe to study for that 1 year. Coming back, and then also stay in FA for another 2, and then the professional club opportunity comes out. I feel that maybe I can contribute to something about contract writing, about negotiating sponsorships. So I step away. So I think the takeaway of football is that it's always changing, and then it always open doors to all kind of possibilities. And then I think that I feel people who are interested in working in football or in sport is if there's a chance to open up, take the challenge, and then be not afraid of it, because sports is to challenge yourself.
Good. So in short, as you said at the start, the sports industry is like every other industry. It's not just about what happens on the pitch, on the field, on the court. There's so many different aspects to it, right?
Yes, definitely agree with that.
Great. And so being a general manager of a professional club and being a CEO of a football association, can you maybe walk us through what are some of the differences in those roles? Because everyone who doesn't work in football, I think, just sees football and thinks it's all the same. But as you know, as I know, as others know, it's very different being in club world versus federation world.
Yeah, I think that's the greatest questions. I always have that the same question coming out, especially from nowadays. I can have some proteges, apprentice coming into my office. Just 20 minutes ago, I have 2 just college graduates sitting in front of me asking, so why do I make this choice? Why do I not stay with a professional club? I think the challenge comes from different, very different areas. As working federations, federation is mostly we make the structures, the policies, and then we also work with governments and foreign FAs. So a lot of the FA work is about structures, about statutes, regulations. And this has to be very broad, that you have to have a broad eyes that not only considering from the club's benefit, sometimes business benefit, but also as a leader, as a governor of the sports, like what are we doing to make sports better, more acceptable, more accessible. However, working in the club is very different. It's club is about, first of all, of course, competition. So how do you to win on the field? And then we look at how we use that affection to lead whether it's local, it's regional, or even it's country that everybody knows sports and they follows us to generate the money. So I wouldn't say that which one is easier, but then I would say in the club sides, we focus a lot more first on the competition only. So in recruiting players, recruiting coaches. However, on the federation side, we're recruiting staff personnel. We're looking for people who are versatile, who can think bigger than they're just very narrow view. So I think that's a major difference. Is one's on policy, the other focus more on the competition.
Thank you. That's a really neat way to describe it. So, as CEO then of the federation, or general secretary from the official language inside the football world, what does your average day look like? And please don't say every day is the same.
No, or every day is very different. For example, yesterday was Sunday, and then I have to be in the field and teach a lot of my staff that how you set up on the field. So as a general secretary, as one of the experienced guy in the FA right now, that's a lot of know-how that's to be shared hand in hand instead of just on paper. So I think one of the things that's common day to day is always changing. And then I have to be open to all kind of questions and challenges. Next thing you know is a press conference all of a sudden because somebody asked a question. And so a day to day to me is that I have agenda. I have agenda that I'll go through very early in with my admin staff, and then to see whether there's anything outside the scope that we could foresee. And if not, I usually talk to all my staffs for 10 to 20 minutes from different departments. I walk to their office or they come to my office and we just talk and see to catch up. So every day, one of the things every day is I catch up the things that we talked about the day before or maybe a week before to make sure that the wheel is turning instead of just not moving. And also that's talk to one of the key stakeholders, my committee, my exco members, my committee members, to know what the stakeholders are looking for to FA to achieve in this month, in this season, or even in the 4-year terms as the president's 4-year terms here in Chinese Taipei.
Good. That's a good segue because I was going to ask you a little bit about some of the matters within the CTFA and your leadership style, and you mentioned stakeholders. So as the leader of the organization, what is your tactics? What are some tips you might give people in terms of managing stakeholders? And maybe first, before you even go to those tips, tactics, etc., explain to us who are the main stakeholders in the Chinese Taipei Football Association, internal and external, because I know that in every country, the football stakeholders are very different depending on the circumstances.
So I'll just run through a little bit about the stakeholders here domestically, of course. Not only the members, because the members are the 22 prefectural county representatives, and then there are 14 teams professional clubs, 8 men's and 6 women's professional clubs presidents, and also the referee committee, the coaching committee. So those are the stakeholders on paper. But in the same, sorry, when you say on paper, you mean those are the stakeholders that get to vote at your Congress or AGM, right? Correct. Correct. So those are the people who has a vote to decide the president for 4 years of term. So those are the major stakeholders that I was able to communicate with them on a daily or weekly basis, because all of them have developments, wishes, and then so I have to basically kind of oversee all the wishes or the agenda they have, and see if there's a common ground that everybody focus on. So that's the thing that we can push forward the fastest. So for those stakeholders, those are internal. And the external, of course, we get funding from governments. And so the government, it has its own regulation that we need to follow, especially when it comes to money. It has to be transparent. It has to be go over tender policies and all that. So for external stakeholders, it's usually about how we follow the rules, and then basically to be very open to those. And those are the external stakeholders. So and to balance the two, I think one of the things I failed to mention is day-to-day is how I balance the needs of everybody. One thing I learned as a referee, I think that's the most important experience I had, is a good referee is the one that's people don't feel you exist, but then you are very essential to be part of the match. I think that's the thing for a general secretary or even for the FA staff, is we are there. We're making sure everything runs smoothly, but usually people don't aware that they're not aware of we are there. So I think that's I would explain that it's kind of leadership I tell my staff, is that we do a lot of behind the scene work, but appreciation is not what we're working for we're working to achieve a goal that's football become one of the biggest sports here in Taiwan. So that's why a lot of talks, like my staff, they sometimes talk a lot. Yes, because I like to chat, to know people, and to see that can we find a common ground that everybody has to agree upon and to work on.
Then excellent. You keep moving into the next points, which is brilliant. So, I mean, you talk about that being doing the heavy lifting and being more in the background. What does success then mean for you? And what does success mean for the CTFA? And how do you measure that success as a leader? You know, in some business, or in professional football, as you mentioned, success is measured by winning, right? Or how high you finish. But as a federation, where do you set your success and bar, and how do you measure that?
Okay. For this, I have I think one of the story that I always love to share. I've become a storyteller. So the other day I was this Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year, that's people are arguing about the words, but so in the big city, in capital city, there's not a lot of going on because people went back home to their hometown. I was driving, and then so it was a Tuesday holiday morning, so on the way to get some grocery. And there are two kids that are just walking in just on the streets, but they are passing a football that I have never seen. I mean, in a lot of countries that football is live kind of country, in European, in South Africa, they probably see this every day. But for me, that growing up in a country that play basketball and baseball, you see people with basketball and then with baseball bats. You don't see football very often. But then that day, I feel that to see that, to me, that's the success I want to achieve. Is that for one day, kids in this country will think, oh, I will also pick up football and pass on the street, and then I'll kick around, go to a park. You not only see people playing basketball and baseball, but also football. And to grow that mass participations, winning or losing is one thing, but to have the kids to have an idea of what football is, because this is what get me into the world, to meet people like today, to meet James, is football. The language we speak might be English, but the language we all speak is football. And then I think to give them the language that sports can communicate and they can make friends. So that to me, that would be the biggest success, and also to the FA.
That's beautiful. Well, let's hope that your streets are flooded with kids playing football over the next decade, and we'll check in for seeing how your participation rates are going. Let's move on slightly to a different topic, because the Chinese Taipei Football Association is I wouldn't say unique, but is one of the few leagues, few MAs within Asian football where the top tier league, which is the full league, is run by the federation itself. So not only do you have the challenge of putting together your national teams, handling mass participation and development of youth players, as you mentioned, policy and regulation, but you also have to run the league. Explain how much time that takes up for you and how you balance all of your other responsibilities as a federation with also being the main competition organizer as well.
Oh, wow. It's a big question. And then it's a question I people love off season, and off season to federation it's like, oh my God, off season comes. Like you said, to set out a new regulations, to fix the schedule, to fix the broadcasting schedule. If we have the separate entity, that would be beautiful, because then we just focus on the national team sides, and the league has their own. And that's the goal we are working towards. We've been thinking that whether to separate the entities to make the league more professional. And of course, it comes down to whether the participating league teams they are willing to do so. Because that being said, a lot of things comes to about structures within the Chinese Taipei Football Association, and also how we get fundings. All this team gets partial funding from the government, so to be their own separate entity, and this I can of course openly share with everybody, is that then the team won't get subsidized, because then they are professional clubs and they are professional league. So governments by law they cannot subsidize any private entity. So that's a dilemma that I have in hands. So in other words, that if I can make the league which is running by the FA not profitable, but they can generate earning more than the subsidy from governments, then there's an incentive for the league to be separate. So a lot of the time, I always explain to my staff is how we either elevate or decrease the threshold for the usership. Is basically, if we can generate more incomes, then of course they want to be separate. And so it is the give and take that we are facing right now, is how do we find enough sponsorship or enough people who are interested to run the league. That being said, at the moment, from what I see, I don't see the league to be separate from us within these 2-3 years. Simply because looking at other professional sports here in Taiwan, that it's not been very successful. Because then they start losing money, and then players start losing interest to playing. So what we do right now is, like I said, back to what generally the mass participation is, that how we make the stadium more valuable and start to try to sell tickets. So let a team to realize that they can generate some part of the income, but those income now comes to the FA. But if they want to be separated, then they start to know so this money is worth earning. So we look into the infrastructures. So in this couple of years, we use a lot of FIFA, AFC's sports, and also government sport to have more football specific, and also floodlights. These are the two things for a country that's in the summer, it reached almost 40 degrees Celsius. To play at night is very important. So floodlights, and also how the stadium looks for fans to increase participation. So yes, right now our strategy is this: to make that football more approachable from teams and from fan standpoint. Then eventually, I think the team will realize that now they can do this by themselves, and then the league will be separate from us. Then we can focus on the national team, also the policy side, while the league focusing on the business side.
A lot of work on your shoulders. Well, good luck with all of that. It sounds really fascinating, and I know you can do it. That's for sure. I wanted to talk about biggest challenges, and I think you touched on one there already, which we can delve into, because I also come from a country, as you know, where football is not the number one sport, and so there are big challenges, in Australia for football when it comes to government money, when it comes to sponsorship money, television broadcast money. Athletes are playing other sports. They're not necessarily playing football. Explain to us in Taiwan how that is, given the popularity of basketball and baseball, and how you, as a leader, you strategize and you deal with that challenge of being in competition with those other sports.
I think that is, I think a lot of the country where football is not the biggest sport has the in common. So from what I learned so far is to try to learn from all those countries who successfully bring football into that top tier. For example, like I was in Australia and seeing how football become such a different vibes because of the World Cup. So hosting event will be one, and then to generate that country's pride. For us, baseball did it, basketball did it. So for us, it's like how in this, I would say that politically challenging side of the situations, how we host international match, how we invite international teams to here and to generate that vibe will be one thing that can balance out, can also challenge other sports here. However, I would say the biggest challenge for me is to accept that people have different agendas, stakeholders can have different agenda and different visions, and try to find the middle ground. In books, we can always say, okay, you need to have this strategy and all this, but then on the other hand, when it comes to dealing with people, then you have different process and different challenges. So my biggest challenge is to find the common ground for every stakeholders, and then to work on that common ground. So one step at a time. I mean, success cannot be achieved in one day. We all know that to live in that day by day is very different. To accept the failure and then to walk only a little steps.
Yeah. So future World Cup or future Asian Cup in Chinese Taipei, we'll see. We'll see.
Finger crossed. Finger crossed.
We'll see. But no, look, you just speaking on that, we obviously caught up at in Sydney in August last year at the Women's World Cup as well. How was your experience? How was your experience of the Women's World Cup, and what lessons could you bring back from the Women's World Cup, you think, to the CTFA?
Well, the experience there in Sydney was amazing, to be honest. It was my first time in Australia. So first of all, I can definitely feel the people are talking. I can say I'm walking on the street, especially when Australia is playing. I can feel the whole city. I guess that will go across the whole country that's supporting behind the one team. And so one thing I can take away is that's how a country that's football is not the biggest sports. In overnight, it becomes one of the topic that everybody talks about. It's not only World Cup itself, it's all the surroundings. I can see the business side supporting. I can see sinkers, pictures all over the place on cereal box. And in the meantime, I see a lot of local business. They are willing to conduct anything about football. TVs playing football, everything. So how the country organized this behind it, that's to mobilize every aspect of the business to come into the airports, the transportations, everything's about football. Even going to grocery shopping, like the first line of thing is like football items. No matter whether it's official or not, it's just football. So the takeaway is that hosting, I feel that hosting the event is one thing, but how before hosting, during hosting, that's collaborating with all other departments to make that, walking to the candy shop for which is football. That's how I felt when I was in Sydney.
That's amazing. I really hope that you get the opportunity to experience that in your home country as well. Look, the last topic we'll touch on before we wrap up is, what do you see as a leader in Asian football, as a leader in world football? What do you see as some of the future trends coming to the industry?
Well, big questions. I feel that I would say every continent is leveraging the competitions. Nowadays, even in World Cup in countries, or even in Club World Cup, or even when it comes to transfer markets, when see people players' value and where player goes, it become a really world sports. From what I see, it's still I would say still European central, because that's the top of the pyramid. However, I can see players going to different parts of the countries of the world, in Middle East, US, some in Asia too. Especially now the scheduling are unifying, so everybody is competing for that, the jewels of the players. And then, so that being said, I would say, since the language of football is the same, so eventually I see that the competition will be the same. It depends on where the players wants to go, where the market wants to go. One thing I'm certain that Asia has the biggest population. So when it comes to consumer spending, Asia will be one of the topic that a lot of big club wants to. Some of them already have done their the footsteps in Asia, but then eventually I think all over the place, clubs, country, national teams will try to find a way to speak the global language of football. So eventually, how fast one can transfer the idea to another culture and be acceptable would be the cornerstone for that entity to thrive and to be successful. Because one ideology may work in, let's say, England, but might not work in Chinese Taipei. But when you transfer that into a cultural acceptable point, then you get the popularity very fast, and then you have that first steps of the advantage.
Let's see if that takes hold in the future. I'm always of the opinion that Asian money should be spent within Asia. So I like to see at one stage all of the big entrepreneurs who own clubs within Central Europe to go back home and reinvest at home and direct their money in that way. So let's see if that opposite angle takes a hold.
Yeah.
But no, look, Chen, this has been super. Really great insights. Really good for all of our listeners and viewers. So on behalf of the FC, and with thanks to the FIFA Master Alumni Association, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, James, and thank you again for your invitation, and thank you, FMAs, for having this opportunity. Lovely experience, and I always recommend people who is interested that FMA will be number one choice.
Thanks, Chen.